Hello there, this is Al24 World News and this is the midnight and these are the headlines. Two Palestinians, including a doctor, were killed Friday in a Zionist raid in the flashpoint city of Jenin, the occupied West Bank. The military leader Ibrahim Traoré, who led the latest coup in Burkina Faso, was on Friday named the interim president until elections are held in July 2024. The Council of Heads of State of the Commonwealth of Independent States, the CIS, reaffirmed the importance of their gathering and expressed readiness to strengthen multilateral cooperation at the meeting in Astana. Hello Ghana, welcome. I'm your host, Abdulrahim Kashor, and those were today's top stories. First, in our topic on news, the works of the extraordinary session of Chiefs of Staff of the Member States of the Joint Operational Staff Committee was concluded. Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, Saeed Shangariha, also participated in this extraordinary session. The event provided an opportunity to exchange views on issues of common interest. Algerian Foreign Minister Mr. Ramtala Mamra restated the effective role Algeria has always played in uniting the Arab countries. The head of the Algerian diplomacy considered the unity of the Palestinian ranks an important step in the success of the Arab Summit, which Algeria will host in the coming month.
All the Palestinian factions, regardless of their various camps, believe that this is the time and this is the right place, Algeria, for this unification. As we are preparing for the Arab Summit, the historical backgrounds and experience also proves that the summits that were held in Algeria always and forever raised the ceiling of joint Arab action and made the participants and the Arab nation in general emerge with greater strength, efficiency, conviction and the ability to impose a point of view on the international community. The more we unite as Arabs, the more we can positively influence the course of things.
And in the same story, the signing of the Declaration of Algiers aimed to bring all Palestinian factions together is still getting a positive reaction from all over the world, following Qatar, Turkey and Libya, who expressed their satisfaction from the move. Russia, Tunisia and Oman have also welcomed the step taken in Algeria that aims to realize a Palestinian national unity. To a different matter now, two Palestinians, including a doctor, were shot and killed by Zionist forces during a raid on the northern West Bank city of Jenin. Abdullah Al-Ahmed, the doctor in his 40s, was shot in the head by the Zionist soldiers on Friday morning in front of the public hospital in Jenin, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry. Mateen Dabaya, at 20 years old, is the second victim. Mateen was named as a local leader in Jenin Brigades, a Palestinian armed resistance organization that was formed last year. Still in Palestine, the Joint Chamber of the Palestinian resistance factions called on the Palestinian people in Al-Quds, the West Bank and occupied Palestine to escalate anger and continue to respond to the Zionist aggression by activating all military means to curb the Zionist provocations and killings. The joint room of the Palestinian resistance factions explained that the barbaric aggression that Shafat camp is subjected to is an attempt to cover up the failure and inability of the occupation forces in the face of the heroic determination of its residents.
We call our people in Al-Quds, the West Bank and occupied Palestine in 1948 to escalate their anger and continue to respond to the Zionists and their barbaric aggression against our holy sites.
Moving on now to the African continent, Sahrawi President Ibrahim Ghali will embark on an official visit to South Africa starting Tuesday, October 18, at the invitation of the South African counterpart Cyril Ramaphosa. The visit aims to consolidate bilateral relations and strengthen the bonds of brotherhood rooted between the two peoples, which dated back to long years of struggle against colonialism and apartheid. And for more explanation on this visit to South Africa by the Sahrawi President Ibrahim Ghali, we have phoned earlier Mr. Mohammed Yeslam Baysat, who is a Sahrawi ambassador in South Africa, and he had this to say.
It is scheduled that President Ghali to visit South Africa in a state visit on the 18th, 19th, 20th of October, where he will have direct talks with President Cyril Ramaphosa and the government of South Africa. He is heading a very big delegation of the government of Sahrawi Republic. This state visit is expected to have a very successful talks about the actual situation and the future cooperation of the Sahrawi Republic and the Republic of South Africa. These come in the framework of the traditional and historic relations of solidarity, cooperation and friendship between the Republic of South Africa and the Sahrawi Republic. We, in the Sahrawi Republic, expect this visit to be a new step in the relations that the Sahrawi Republic and the rayonnement, the shining of the Sahrawi Republic on the African scene and on the international scene.
Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the latest coup leader in Burkina Faso, was named Friday president of the transition until the holding of elections in July 2024. Hussein Burkan in this story.
Captain Ibrahim Traoré, who took power 2 weeks ago during a putsch in Burkina Faso, the second in 8 months, was designated Friday, October 14, unanimously transitional president until the presidential election scheduled for July 2024. Captain Traoré was appointed by national meetings, bringing together some 300 representatives of the army and the police, customary and religious organizations, civil society, trade unions and parties.
For us, it is Ibrahim Traoré who is our president, since we have been waiting for him for a very long time. We wanted a young person who will be at the head of this government, which will reform everything to bring everything back to zero for the stability of this country, and the reconquest of our territory, and the total sovereignty of the African youth, and precisely of the Burkinabe.
In Ouagadougou, several hundred demonstrators showed support for the appointment of Ibrahim Traoré as head of Burkina Faso, while the national meetings were being held to elect the president of the transition and the adoption of a transition charter. Pro-Russian and pro-Captain Ibrahim Traoré demonstrators kept up the pressure, brandishing portraits of Captain Traoré, waving Russian, Burkinabe and Malian flags.
He is a fighting son. He is capable of leading Burkina Faso. Please God, he will lead it. We are behind him 100%. Even tomorrow, we are behind him. I left as far as Guinea-Conakry. I am from Burkina Faso to come and support him. We are behind him 100%.
Captain Traoré is expected to respect the commitment made under the Paul Henry Damiba vis-à-vis the community of the West African state ECOWAS, in particular on the organization of election and the return of civilians to power no later than July 2024.
The new UN envoy to Libya, Abdullah Bitali, said upon his arrival that his priority is to determine a consensual path, or rather path that leads to comprehensive elections based on a solid constitutional framework. He will also host separate meeting with the Supreme Council of State, the head of the National Unity Government, Abdelhamid Dbeiba, and a number of parties and civil society institutions before heading to Benghazi to meet the President and members of the House of Representatives. To a different topic, Russian President Vladimir Putin and other leaders of the Commonwealth of Independent States gathered on Friday morning for a summit meeting in Astana, Kazakhstan. Russian President Vladimir Putin said that the grain does not ship to the world's poorest countries as the UN planned. Putin also expressed his skepticism regarding the corridors, saying that they might be used for terrorist attacks.
Unfortunately, this grain does not go, or go in a minimal amount, to the world's poorest countries. Me and President of Turkey have discussed this already. He agreed during our talk yesterday that the grain flows should be defined and directed firstly to the poorest countries. If these humanitarian corridors emerged to be used for terrorist attacks, it would call into question further the existence of such corridor. You should ask President Joe Biden if he's ready to hold such negotiations with me or not. I don't see the need, to be honest.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky awarded servicemen during ceremony celebrating Defenders Day on Friday in Kiev. The attendees honored the memory of the defenders who died for Ukraine with a minute of silence. Zelensky presented the orders of the Golden Star to servicemen and assigned honorary titles to the military units.
Українці завжди боролись передусім.
The war launched by Russia is now crucial. We can ensure with our victory what generations of Ukrainians fought for before us. We can give Ukrainian long-term guarantees of peace and national security. We can guarantee freedom for generations to come, freedom for all Ukrainians.
Прошу вас.
And from Ukraine to the United Kingdom, only 38 days after being appointed as Finance Minister, Liz Truss has decided to fire Kwasi Kwarteng. This downfall is one of the fastest in the British political history. Nabil Khazini.
A six-old premiership and already a close member of her cabinet is now fired. The British Prime Minister Liz Truss seems to be fighting to remain in office after dramatically replacing her Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng and ditching a key pledge of her mini-budget. Jeremy Hunt, who has previously served as Foreign Secretary and Health Secretary, was appointed as the new Finance Minister.
I met the former Chancellor earlier today. I was incredibly sorry to lose him. He is a great friend, and he shares my vision to set this country on the path to growth. Today, I have asked Jeremy Hunt to become the new Chancellor. He's one of the most experienced and widely respected government ministers and parliamentarians, and he shares my convictions and ambitions for our country.
This represents a new major economic and fiscal turnaround in the United Kingdom, 3 weeks after the presentation of a budget which panicked the market and proved too unpopular for the Tory MPs.
I think the only decent thing that Tory backbenchers could do now is call time on Liz Truss and this entire UK government and allow people across the UK to have a general election. I mean, this is beyond a joke. It was never funny, but Liz Truss has already, through her own decisions, crashed the economy and heaped misery on people who were already struggling with a cost of living crisis.
Beyond criticism of her economic programme, Liz Truss is facing an increasingly lively revolt within her own party, where some are already calling for her departure just over a month after her appointment.
The challenge that Liz Truss and the Conservative government in Britain has is that they're changing leaders, they're changing senior members very, very quickly. Liz Truss herself now, there's a lot of momentum within the Conservative Party in Parliament, perhaps to remove her as well. And this begins to look like a party that hasn't any longer got control of politics or government.
The British Prime Minister has been under growing pressure from within her own party to rethink her economic plans. Liz Truss, meanwhile, said that she was determined to stay on in her role despite her credibility to lead the country is being called into question.
Some French media reports said that two NGOs have filed complaints against French energy giant Total Energies for what they called complicity in war crimes, for allegedly helping fuel Russian planes that were used in Ukraine. The two NGOs accused the French energy giant of exploiting a gas field used to manufacture kerosene used by Russian airplanes in Ukraine. The toll in a coal mine explosion in northern Turkey, or rather Turkey, rose to 22. Interior Minister Süleyman Soylu said while 14 more were hospitalized. Local media reported that 49 were trapped at the coal mine in Turkey's northern Bartın province. Turkey's disaster management authority said that the cause of the explosion was unknown. Reiterating an earlier statement, the explosion was caused by a transformer.
110 kişi
110 of our brothers were working. Some of them, the ones on the upper levels, managed to exit right after this explosion. Some others have been rescued. We had 49 people at the risky area. 21 of them have been admitted to the hospital so far. Unfortunately, 14 people lost their lives. At the moment, 7 people are being transferred to the hospital.
A 15-year-old boy fatally shot 2 people in the streets of a middle-class Raleigh neighborhood, then fled toward a popular walking trail where he opened fire, killing 3 more people and wounding 2 others in an attack that left the city reeling and authorities searching for a motive. Raleigh Police Chief Stella Patterson said at the news conference. The victims were of different races and ranged in age from 16 to the late 50s. The dead include off-duty Raleigh police officer Gabriel Torres, who was on his way to work when the shooting began.
As you know, 5 individuals lost their lives, including an off-duty Raleigh Police Department officer. 2 others were injured, including a Raleigh police officer who has been treated and released from the hospital. The other injured victim is 59-year-old Marcel Gardner, who is still in critical condition. A 15-year-old white male suspect was taken into custody and is in critical condition. So the crime scene was pretty expansive, over 2 miles. We had that section sectioned off, and we're asking that the public stay away from that as we continue the investigation. Once we received the 911 call yesterday, and we're so thankful to the community for that and for the continual updates that we received, our officers immediately responded, as well as our other partners. Once we arrived, we did find that there were 2 victims, and throughout the investigation, we ended up with 5 victims who were deceased, and then our 2 who were injured.
Wall Street stocks went into reverse after initially gaining at Friday's open, while the dollar was rising in an unstable session as investors consumed Russia's suggestion that it would ease attacks against Ukraine, the British Prime Minister's firing of her finance minister, and the start of U.S. earnings seasons. In the last session of a volatile week, equities opened higher than reverse course after data from University of Michigan showed consumer sentiment improved in October, but inflation expectation worsened as gasoline prices moved higher. Retail sales data also indicates resilience among consumers. And now for more international news, let's follow this roundup by Marwa Belaour.
Chad named several former rebels to ministerial posts in its new national unity government, which was formed on Friday and will lead the country for the next 2 years until elections. The government is the result of a national dialogue held in recent months aimed at easing political tensions, in which several prominent former rebel leaders were invited to participate. China sent a new remote sensing satellite into space from the Xichang Satellite Launch Center in the southwestern province on Sichuan. The satellite Tiaogan 36 was launched by a Long March 2D carrier rocket at 3:12 p.m. Beijing time on Saturday and entered the planet orbit successfully. This was the 444th flight mission of the Long March series carrier rockets. Protesters and climate activists took to the streets on Friday to protest the World Bank's funding of fossil fuel projects. The public data from Oil Change International's Public Finance for Energy database was analyzed by Big Shift Global. Some protesters believe that these investments will aggravate the climate crisis in developing countries and slow down their growth. Argentina's monthly inflation rate was 6.2% in September. The government's index statistics agency said on Friday, below analysts' forecasts for a 6.7% increase in consumer prices. Inflation in the 12 months through September hit 83% as the South American country battles surging prices that are saping people's wages and savings. Prices were up 66.1% in the first 9 months of the year.
At this late hour, all I can say, thank you so much for being with us, dear viewers. And for more updates, you can follow our social media platform as is shown on screen. For now, good night.